The system you operate in may be entirely broken. The metrics you are measured against might be mathematically designed to keep you exhausted, and the training you received was likely rushed, incomplete, and negligent. These are facts, but that is exactly what makes your explanation so dangerous. The most persistent excuses are never lies. If they were lies, they would be easy to discard. The excuses that trap you for decades are constructed entirely from facts. The problem begins when a perfectly reasonable explanation for failure becomes permanent permission to remain unchanged. You take the evidence of a broken system and you use it to build an alibi. If the environment is unfair, you tell yourself you no longer have to try. You trade your agency for the comfort of being right. You are correct that the situation is flawed, but being correct has not set you free. It has only justified your paralysis.
You might sit in a room perfectly analyzing the flaws of the business process around you. You understand why the client demands are unreasonable, and you have diagnosed exactly why attrition is so high. This level of self-awareness often masquerades as progress. It tricks you into feeling proactive. You have mapped out every structural disadvantage, which makes you feel like you are moving forward, when in reality, you are entirely stationary. This blueprint shows the exact dimensions of a problem, but drawing a highly detailed map of a cage is not the same thing as escaping it. Observation is not action. When your explanation of a problem never translates into a change in your behavior, the explanation is no longer a tool for understanding. It becomes a shield against expectation. There is a precise boundary between understanding your environment and surrendering to it. You cross that line the moment you trade your personal agency for the comfort of having a valid excuse. You do not hold on to your excuses because you are foolish. You hold on to them because they pay you a dividend. They offer a deep psychological reward, protection. If you remain in an environment where failure is expected, you never have to test the true limits of your competence. By blaming the trainer, the software, or the workload, you are protected from the terrifying possibility that you might try your absolute hardest and still fail. This preserves your moral innocence. It allows you to tell yourself, I could have done it if only the conditions were right. As long as you never fully commit, your potential remains theoretically infinite, safely guarded by the barrier of your circumstances. Over time, an excuse metastasizes. It stops being something you merely say, and it becomes something you fundamentally are. The history of being overlooked becomes a prophecy you actively fulfill, and you bond with others strictly through shared grievances. The grievance becomes the personality. When you define yourself by what the system has done, you grant it total victory. You are no longer navigating the environment, you are simply echoing it. This collapse usually happens because of a specific cognitive error. People confuse taking responsibility with accepting self-blame. Looking at this stark layout, the distinction is perfectly clear. Self-blame looks backward. It is an emotional mechanism that says, I am defective, and this outcome is a reflection of my inherent lack of worth. Responsibility looks forward. It is a logical mechanism that insists your choices still matter, regardless of the disadvantages you were handed. Blame is about who started the fire. Responsibility is about who is holding the fire extinguisher. You can stand in the ashes and correctly point out who dropped the match, or you can choose to find the exit. Taking responsibility does not mean you absolve the inadequate manager or the broken process. It does not pretend the disadvantages do not exist. It simply dictates your next survival action. In a collapsing system, only one of these choices keeps you alive. This discipline divides your existence into 3 unyielding categories. First, what happened without your consent? Layoffs, baseline disadvantages. Second, what you cannot control. The client's timeline, the past. Third, the exact perimeter you can influence through deliberate choices, like focus or preparing for an exit. Maturity is the ability to see the entire board of disadvantages clearly, without allowing the first 2 categories to crush the third. Responsibility is identifying this exact perimeter of influence, no matter how small it has shrunk, and operating violently within it. When you finally drop your excuse, you do not immediately step into success. You step into the void. It is a terrifying, silent emptiness that replaces your alibi. Without your excuse, you no longer have a story that justifies your inaction. The noise of complaint is stripped away,
and you are left entirely alone with your own capability. It is deeply uncomfortable because it requires you to act without a guarantee. Look at the perimeter of your life right now. Locate the one specific area where you have surrendered your agency to a factual explanation. What valid reason have you turned into permission to stay exactly where you are? Then, identify one single mechanical action that directly contradicts your favorite excuse. Not a grand shift in identity, but a small physical action. Open the manual they didn't teach you. Make the choice you have delayed. The system will not change to accommodate you. No one is coming to save you, and no one cares about your perfectly constructed reasons for failing. The responsibility is yours. Let the rest burn.